This is it.
The semifinals are set. We are down now to our final four.
But only one can be crowned champion.
Only two are going to go to the finals. Somebody's got to go home.
They are all now just one step away from the biggest night of their careers.
This has been quite the journey.
It's going to get bigger than it's already been.
The last episode before the live finale of the Mae Young Classic.
Ladies and gentlemen, are you ready?
Right here, right now.
You know, and we all have our 15 minutes of fame, and I'd like to take a couple of my 15 minutes to talk about the rights and the wrongs in the world of professional wrestling.
And it is for the WWE Championship.
This match is for the ECW World Heavyweight Championship.
For the World Heavyweight Championship.
The match and new NWA Heavyweight Champion of the world.
We appreciate you guys coming out and taking your time to support women's wrestling in America.
This match is for the AWA World Heavyweight Wrestling Championship.
Pro Wrestling Network review of the Mae Young Classic. Hello, this is your host, Mr. Green, and we are about to go over the remaining 4 episodes of the Mae Young Classic. So let me say right off the bat, if you have not had the opportunity to watch the Mae Young Classic in full as of yet, and you are not wanting any spoilers, this is a review, and it will have spoilers in it. We're going to be talking about who won and who lost and all of that stuff. So if you're sensitive to that, if you don't want to hear it, if you want to be surprised and you haven't gotten around to it yet, you may want to take the time to listen to this after you have watched the videos on your own. Also, if you had your prediction sheets, your brackets out, you may want to go along with this with me because, or if you remember looking at mines that is listed on our Facebook page, go to Women's Pro Wrestling Network on Facebook. That's facebook.com/Women's Pro Wrestling Network, all one word. And you can go and you can check all these predictions and know that this is not something that I'm saying or making up on the spot. So you can check it out there. Also, I did put it up on our Instagram, which is WPN Wrestling. Same as our Twitter, WPN Wrestling. So you'll be able to follow along with all predictions that were put out as far as the rounds are concerned. If you're listening to this and you probably heard the first round review, and throughout 16 matches, we had 32 girls, 16 matches. Throughout those matches, I got one wrong, and I was really on fire there. One wrong out of the entire first round, and that was the Sage Beckett Bianca Belair match. I was really shocked, but pleasantly surprised that Bianca Belair went over to the second round. So as it relates to that, what I will be doing if I got something wrong, such as that match, I will still go with the winner that I picked originally, provided that there is a winner or there is a pick that is involved. So in this particular case, using the example of the Sage Beckett Bianca Belair match, what I chose in the second round bracket that Beckett and Belair were in is that Beckett was going to go, but she was going to go against Kairi Sane. But since Beckett did not go and it's Belair, and I originally picked Sane to win, I will still go with the original pick. I will go with Sane, and that will apply to anything that I got wrong. If there is someone that won from my original pick, then I will stick with the original pick. If I come across a situation where I got both brackets wrong and I have no original picks, then I will pick one now. I will choose on the spot for whomever it is that went in to the next round. So that said, last thing before we go off into the bulk of the review, if you have not subscribed to the various platforms, please do, all of which are free. Everything is free here, so it's not going to hurt you in the least. Not going to touch your pockets here. I mean, Only time we ask for that is when we ask for your support, and that is perfectly on your time and your dime. So you do that as you please, and we thank you and everybody that has done it so far. That has really been helpful to keep this thing kind of moving forward. So if you haven't done it, Women's Pro Wrestling Network on Facebook, like I said, facebook.com/Women's Pro Wrestling Network, all one word. Same thing with YouTube, Women's Pro Wrestling Network, all one word. You'll find it very easily that way. It'll come right up. On Twitter and Instagram, WPN Wrestling. And you can also go to WPNWrestling.com for the website, which is where all of the things go. So we will, in fact, now that I'm sitting here talking about it, there's some things that I have to upload to get things back up to speed there so that you can continue to enjoy that. So here we go. We're going to start, and we're going to go in order. This is the second round of the Mae Young Classic, which I found to be fairly entertaining. Keep in mind that this did not have necessarily the pacing of the Cruiserweight Classic or anything like that, because that was high-flying, for the most part, and kind of fast action. But it was good, solid wrestling. Make no mistake about it. It was good and entertaining, and I thought the WWE did just a fine job of at least establishing who is what per round, because a lot of these matches were cold matches. A lot of some of these girls are international. You may not have been as familiar with them or know their background or know what they do or who they're about. But the WWE took care of that through a lot of backstage vignettes and interviews and so on and so forth. I have to reiterate, it is everything that I said that they were going to do. When the tournament was originally announced, I said they are going to blow the knockdown out of the water just in the way that they present it. I mean, forget all the build-up and all that stuff like that, but just in the way that they presented, they kept everything moving. It didn't feel like it slowed down. And that has always been a huge criticism of mine as related to the Knockouts Knockdown, taking 20 to 25 minutes just to do introductions before you begin to have a match. Like, come on, man, this is taking so long. And you don't get that at all here. You got an intro. You probably got a promo piece saying what they were sponsored by. Of course, the normal WWE rigmarole. But then they went right off into the matches. I mean, they introduced you to the players of the match, and then they went right off into it. So you can't really go wrong with that. Speaking of the going wrong and the second round, the first match that came up was the first match I got wrong, and I was shocked that I got this wrong. But the first match that they aired was Abby Lath versus Rachel Evers, and I had Rachel Evers going over in this match, but apparently that was not the case, and I can see why, because Abby Lath, formerly known as Kimberly, has a little bit of a homage to Mae Young, so I guess that kind of pushed her forward a bit more. I mean, she used the alligator clutch to get the win over Jazzy Gabbert, who was formerly the alpha female, and if she can hold her down, who is a big, powerful woman, she certainly was going to be able to hold down Rachel Evers, who also is a powerful woman. Not quite as big, but she is a bronze medal power lifter. So Rachel Evers, some of us know her on the independents as Rachel Ellering. She went down, even though she had a really good showing in the match and has showed vast improvement from the times that you may have seen on NXT and whatnot. And I do think that her appearances on NXT are kind of watered down, because I know that she's capable of doing more. But in this particular case, she went down by means of the alligator clutch, and Abby Lath went on to the semifinals, or I shouldn't say semifinals, the quarterfinals, excuse me. So, and there was a match that was kind of portrayed as kind of face versus face, which for the most part is what has happened here. It was almost as if, we'll call it Ring of Honor rules, because Ring of Honor is basically the first promotion that I've ever seen kind of institute the idea that, hey, shake hands before the match. This isn't anything personal. Y'all are just having a wrestling match, and, kind of shake hands or do something at the end to basically know that you're not pissed off at each other. And that's more or less what they did throughout this whole thing. They shook hands at the beginning, hugged at the end, and they showed good sportsmanship. They showed good sportsmanship from start to finish, with the exception of one or two, and I'm sure I'll get into that a little bit later. Piper Niven, the former Viper, or otherwise known as Viper, defeated Serena Deeb, that was a shock for me. I picked Deeb to at least go into the quarterfinals just based on her being the sentimental favorite, or at least what they played up to be the sentimental favorite. Now, I disagreed with some people like, oh, yeah, she's the WWE veteran that came back, which she is. Technically, yes, Serena Deeb is the WWE veteran. I just wanted to see a different WWE veteran, like say like Mickie James. Like if they put Mickie James in here, if this was her comeback opposed to her coming against Asuka for the NXT Women's Championship, or if they had done her going against Asuka for the NXT Women's Championship and then she disappeared and she came back for this tournament, it would have made sense to me, because it would have been one of those cases like, well, yeah, I'm the veteran here. I'm 30-something years old. I haven't been in the WWE ring in X amount of years, and this might be my last chance to do it, blah, blah, blah. Which is all basically the same thing that they did with Serena Deeb. She blew, in her words, gave her career away because of bad decisions, which is all true. But she just wasn't recognizable as the wrestler to me. Now, that didn't hurt my viewing experience of it at all. In fact, I thought they did an outstanding job of telling the story of Serena Deeb to make me care. So I am wrong in that she shouldn't have been the one. She absolutely should have been the sentimental favorite, and she was, and they did a really good job of that. But because she was a sentimental favorite, I thought that she would have gone on a little bit longer, and I thought it would have been a stronger match. That kind of thing that Brian Kendrick had. I mean, not to jump off into the Cruiserweight Classic, but when he had his final match and he was struggling to do anything and everything he could. I mean, you heard Daniel Bryan on the commentary, who blatantly was cheering for his friend. He wasn't even trying to be unbiased. It was just, it was a perfect package. And when he lost, to have Dan Bryan come out there, both of these guys in tears, and they hugging each other in the ring, like it's almost like, hey man, I'm sorry. We didn't get that moment here. We didn't have that Serena Deeb really emotional moment. You heard Lita kind of root her on, but it wasn't the same. But then again, Lita isn't a polished commentator, although neither is Daniel Bryan. But I will say I would have liked to have gotten more out of that. But in any case, it was Piper Niven who defeated Serena Deeb with the Piper Driver. They call it the Michinoku Driver, even though they listed it as the Piper Driver as a finish. So I'm going to go with what they listed. She popped her with the Piper Driver, ended that match, and she moves on to the quarterfinals. My personal pick, Mercedes Martinez. She goes up against Princesa Suhei, and she won with the Fisherman Buster. She being Martinez. I got that one correct. Martinez was my pick to go pretty much all the way. So I was really happy with that one. As you may probably have surmised by now, I was really proud that Mercedes got into this tournament, and I was so happy that she was continuing on, and that she's had like really good showings here. I hope that something good comes to her from this. If they don't do anything else, just cut her a really big check. WWE, you could do that, or bring her in for at least one good pay-per-view. I would love to see that, and I'm happy that she's moving forward. And so that was my pick. I got that one correct. The surprise match of episode 5, and I would tell you that if you get the time, make sure you go and watch this match. I will endorse this. Go watch Kairi Sane versus Bianca Belair, and I will say, let's just get to the finish right now. Kairi Sane wins, and she won via the top rope elbow, which she is just putting people away with. And she is, let's just say, easily the favorite. She's probably the number 1 seed of the tournament. But she won over Belair, but Belair, again, big surprise. I mean, let's take a look at Bianca from start to finish, technically speaking, this is the third match that she had as related to the Mae Young Classic. The first being the qualifier. She was one of 2 girls that actually had to wrestle in the qualifying match. She won her qualifying match and she entered into the tournament. And I really didn't know that much about her because I think this is her first year really wrestling. But she has such athletic ability. And they kept saying that about it, but I didn't see it just yet. But when I saw her and Sage Beckett in round 1, she made a believer out of me that she was a really talented young lady. And by the time she went into the second round with Belair versus Sane, I was convinced, and I really want to see more from Bianca Belair. If there's anything that can be gained out of losing, I would say Belair got something out of losing. I mean, she was super aggressive. And if you haven't seen her work her hair, because she's got hair like down to her thigh, it is so long, and she's got it twisted off to where she can use it as a whip. And at some point in this match, she was cracking that hair across Kairi Sane. I mean, and you could hear it in that building, and those fans were oohing and ahhing. I was oohing and ahhing just sitting there at home because I was like, my God, that sounds like that hurt so bad. I mean, it sounded like a legitimate bullwhip coming across that girl's skin, and Belair was just tossing around. I mean, Sane is a pretty small girl to begin with. She's a really good wrestler, but she's a really a small girl already, and so you knew that Belair walked into this thing with the power and the strength advantage because she stood up to Sage Beckett, who was bigger than her, and she basically stood toe to toe in terms of strength. So you knew that she was just going to run through Sane. But anyway, getting towards the end of the match, what essentially happened is that Belair was looking for anything to put Sane away, and she did a new move. She broke out a new move assumably a new move out of her move set. She goes up to the top rope after dropping Sane and laying her flat, hits her with a 450 splash that gets the crowd legitimately believing that Belair was going to go forward. But Sane kicks out. She gets that shoulder up, and Bianca Belair is totally stunned. She's like out of her mind shocked that she was able to do it. And that was where the downfall of Bianca Belair happened because she got frustrated. She tried to charge through Sane, hit her with a spear, which is essentially what put down Beckett in the first round. But Sane gets out of the way. Belair charges the post, and that spelled the beginning of the end for Bianca Belair. And once Sane got in position for that elbow, that was it. But if you haven't watched that match, I'm going to say go and watch that match. It is good on both ends. It was a surprise showing by Bianca Belair, and I really look forward to seeing her in the future. Episode 6, the second round. Oh, okay. And by the way, yes, I predicted Sane to go over on Belair, and I predicted Martinez to go over on Princess Suhei. So I got 2 wrong that episode to correct that episode, and I can move on. Episode 6, still the second round. And remember, all second round matches are 20 minutes in time limit. Even though the time limit never really came into play, I always thought that when they had started announcing the time limit, you were going to get somebody that kind of really ran close to the time being over, but that didn't happen. First match, Toni Storm defeats Lacey Evans, the former Ruby Mobs, which I did not find surprising at all. I just didn't see Lacey Evans going over on her. In fact, other than the fact that she was kind of an emotional pick, I didn't see her much further than the second round getting in it, which Evans did get there. And she did a good job, but, she clearly didn't have the experience that Toni Storm did. Storm puts her down with strong zero, which is almost like a kryptonite crunch into a neck breaker across the knee. And Storm moves forward. Got that one correct. Shayna Baszler, who the WWE has played up as basically the beast of this tournament. Let's just get to what it was. She tapped out Mae Young right with a surprise rear naked choke. She caught out of nowhere, which is what she's kind of been doing. And the story with Baszler also has been that she hasn't shown any respect to anybody. She has been the the one that has walked in without the honor or without the respect, and it's all business. She's not there to be a friend or anything like that. So every time somebody stuck their hand out to her, she's essentially just walked away. And with Mae Young was no surprise. Now, Mae Young up until this point has given her the toughest fight, but ultimately it was a tap-out win for Baszler, and she walks out. I got that one correct. This was a prelude to a minor confrontation between horsewomen. As we know, Shayna Baszler's MMA horsewomen were out at ringside supporting her, but also at ringside were the four horsemen of wrestling, that being Bayley and Charlotte and Becky Lynch. The boss was not available apparently, so she wasn't out there, but they still were representing out there in the front row, and we know that they were kind of planted on the front row because the second that match was over and they went into another match, they were nowhere to be found. So it wasn't like they sat through the entire thing. They just disappeared. So there you go. They had their little horseman tease, and both groups tossing up the four fingers. We're the four horsemen. No, we're the four horsemen. Whatever. I can only assume that that's the WWE's way of kind of gauging the audience's interest in this confrontation, if they can make it happen. I do know that apparently Rousey has begun training for wrestling. I think Duke has begun training in wrestling, and of course we know Baszler's already in it. So maybe that'll happen. Who knows? Dakota Kai, who took on Rhea Ripley. Kai goes over with the double foot stomp, what we now know as the coup de grace from Finn Balor. But, of course, they don't call it the coup de grace with Dakota Kai. Rhea Ripley got tied up into the trio woe while Dakota Kai was up on the top rope. And as she sat up, Kai came down, crashing the double foot stomp into her chest, puts her down, pulls her away from the ropes for the pin, and that was it. She got the victory, and she moves on to the quarterfinal round. That was also another correct pick by me. Candice LeRae and Nicole Savoy was the final match of the evening. Now, the final match of the episode, I should say. I was surprised. I shouldn't say surprised. I was interested in seeing what would happen if Nicole Savoy had won. Because one thing that WWE did is they acknowledged the fact, they didn't call them by name, but they acknowledged the trifecta. If you're not aware of the trifecta is Nicole Savoy, Shayna Baszler, and Mercedes Martinez. And they acknowledge that these ladies have traveled around the globe together, and that they have a little bit of a unit, and they've been watching each other's back and all that stuff. So it was interesting to see all three of them get into the tournament to begin with. But in this particular case, why it was interesting is because Savoy and Baszler were bracketed in the same. They were in the same bracket. So if Savoy had won, and Baszler had won, they would have been paired off against each other. Now I was kind of interested in that. Now the problem there is that Baszler did go over on Yim, but Savoy did not go over on LeRae. And I was my pick was Candice LeRae. I was just interested to see how that was going to work if Savoy had actually done it. But Candice LeRae defeats Nicole Savoy. She did it with Miss LeRae's Wild Ride, which is a neck breaker from the second rope. So anytime you've seen the girls kind of get up there and they start working each other on the top rope and getting toward the second, LeRae is looking to hit that Wild Ride and pop him for the win, and that's exactly what happened. Savoy was trying to institute a superplex, but that got kind of shifted over and changed into Miss LeRae's Wild Ride. She hits it, goes to the cover, and she takes the win, advancing to the quarterfinal round. And the quarterfinal round took place in episode 7. Now, each round was starting to minimize, so all 4 episodes of that they released last week was all first round stuff. You can see 5 and 6 were second round. Episode 7 was quarter round, which is, again, another 4 matches. And then you would get down to 2 matches in episode 8, but we'll get to that momentarily. So we start with Mercedes Martinez, who took a win over Abby Lath with the Fisherman Buster. Again, is no surprise. Mercedes Martinez was my pick, and I had her for going over on Abby, and she did. Even though my original pick in the Abby Lath Evers match was Rachel Evers. But Abby went forth, and Mercedes got her, and I was happy with that. It was a case of Abby tried to go for the alligator clutch again. Mercedes slips through, turns, and gets up to a vertical base, pops her in the guts, gets in with that Fisherman Buster, which they did sell as her finish because she had hit a couple of people with it leading. Well, this is the second time. So they knew, with the audience watching now has been educated that this is Mercedes' big move, which she has done, and she's used that for a number of years on the independents. So if you're familiar with her on the independents, you already knew that. But, of course, they have to kind of educate the WWE audience. Baszler went into the quarterfinals, and she wrestled off against Candice LeRae. As I just said earlier, had it been the other way around, she would have been going against her trifecta teammate. But she had to go through LeRae here to get into the semifinal round, which is what she did. LeRae got her up to the second rope, as she did with her previous matches against Savoy and Renee Michelle. And she was attempting to get the Wild Rod applied to Shayna Baszler. Assumably, if she hit it, she would have won the match. Baszler, on the way down, reverses it and tosses her into a rear naked choke, causing Candice LeRae to tap out. The story here was that even though she got to tap out off of LeRae, she refused to release the hold, and LeRae's husband is in the front row watching this, and he, of course, he has to get into the ring and all that. The referees are begging and pleading, telling Shannon to let it go, and she does. And again, there is no sympathy shown by Baszler. She is just marching through people, and JR and Lita are selling it like, hey, this woman is a beast. She's all business. She is kicking butt and taking names. She doesn't have time for the pleasantries and all that stuff. So Baszler gets that, and even after the match is over, she kind of walks over to Candice LeRae in the corner with Johnny Gargano kind of kneeling down over his wife, and she gives her a little kick, just like a little kick on the thigh, just to let her know that, you're nothing to me. And then she walks away. She goes out the ring, and she celebrates again with the four horsewomen of MMA. And, they have continued to support her from start to finish, even though, you got camera shots of them looking worried at times here and there. But ultimately, Baszler won, and LeRae was eliminated. Baszler goes into the semifinal round, which did create the matchup that I was curious about. It would be Martinez versus Baszler in the semifinals, trifecta teammates facing off against each other, and they did start to plant the seeds of that story, but we'll get to that in episode 8, or the episode 8 review portion of this. Toni Storm, who is now in the quarterfinals, took on Piper Niven, which is a nice, fun match that these two ladies had. It was a really basic wrestling match, but it was a fun match, and it showed the level of respect that these two ladies have for one another, and the showcase that they put forth for going move for move, hold for hold, and whatnot. And it really showed, if you weren't familiar with how good or flexible or, how much range Piper Niven has as a wrestler despite her size, this is probably the match for you to watch. So what happens here is Piper at the end of it is, essentially going in for the kill on Toni Storm and laying her out. And at the end, she has her laid on the mat, and she is looking at her like, I don't want to do this, but I have to. She did a really good job of her facial expressions, kind of showing that look. I don't want to hurt you, but man, if I'm gonna go to the next round, I got to do it. So she's going, and she walks over her, and she gets ready to go up to the top rope to kind of come down with that Vader bomb type maneuver. If you haven't seen that, it's like you go to the second rope and you leap backwards and you come off of that splash. So she's looking to hit her with full body weight with the splash. But what she doesn't know is that while she's climbed up, Toni Storm gets up to her feet and she comes up and she locks her in a rear waist lock while she's standing on the second rope and gives her a huge German suplex from the second rope to the mat. And now keep in mind, the story had been that Toni Storm had been trying to apply this German suplex at least 2 other times in the course of the match, and she hadn't been able to execute it because Piper Niven was just too big, too strong for her to get it off. But once she got off of her feet and she got that rear waist lock applied, it was just all over. And she hit her with that German suplex, which put Piper down. And then you got Toni up to the top rope, off the top rope with a leg drop right across the chest. 1, 2, 3. And Toni Storm would advance to the semifinal round. And we have a big show of respect between these two ladies. They're basically in tears with each other. Probably, just how far they've come just to even be there. And this is one of those cases of you have to believe that all of that is legit and they are not out there just putting on a show like, hey, let's make it look good, let's cry for the people. No, and I fully believe that these two ladies were really moved that they had the opportunity to be in front of these fans, in front of the WWE audience. Now keep in mind, just as a side note, for most of the people that's in this tournament, most of them have wrestled in front of a larger crowd than what they have in front of that Full Sail crowd. I know for a fact that Mercedes has wrestled in front of a larger crowd. I know Mae Young has wrestled in front of a larger crowd. Marty Bell, so on and so forth. These ladies have wrestled in front of more people, on the independents, depending on the show, than what's in front of that Full Sail crowd. But the difference being is that they haven't had more people see them simultaneously or at any one time on a digital platform as they will ever get on the WWE network. There lies the difference. So live probably wasn't that big a deal, but in terms of the eyeballs that are on them just around the world, it is the biggest thing that they probably can do. And I certainly understand how that could be just a moving moment for each of these young ladies. To say nothing of the fact that, it is a big sign of approval that it all wasn't for nothing, that they have tried, they have traveled, they have, sacrificed, they've done everything that they could possibly do to be in the professional wrestling industry, and to have gotten there, whether they continue on with the WWE or not, is a big deal, because it's not like that those matches are ever going to go anywhere. It's going to remain on the network as long as there is a network, and it is always going to be used as leverage. Any time that they from this point out go to an independent, or they're asked about their work, or somebody says, who are you, where can I find your stuff, they can always point to that Mae Young Classic. And I just want to put that out there. So anyway, now we move on to the last match, or the main event of episode 7. Oh, well, I skipped over one important part of the show, is that you have your second 4 Horsemen tease, which was a stupid tease. I'm going to go on record to say that I didn't like this particular tease. The tease that took place within the arena was fine. But here's the other one. You had the 4 Horsewomen of MMA that was standing outside of Full Sail doing an interview on WWE.com. They have it listed as a WWE.com exclusive. And they're in front of the, the little banner, and they're talking about, oh, yeah, we're here to support, our girl, Shayna Baszler, this, that, and the other. And then from off camera walks up Bayley, and walks up Charlotte, and walks up Becky Lynch again. The boss is not in tow. There is no Sasha Banks to be found within this confrontation. But it's okay, because it's 3 horsewomen of MMA, and there's 3 horsewomen of wrestling, and so the sides are even. So they decide, they being the 4 horsewomen of wrestling, decide to walk in on their interview and essentially institute a stare down. So at this point, the stare down, you got Rousey, who is the front woman for the 4 horsewomen of MMA in this particular instance, and she's basically stepping forward and saying, hey, you guys name the time and you name the place. And without saying a word, without acknowledging it, without accepting the challenge, without without doing anything, the 4 horsewomen of women back off. On their turf, they back off, which was ridiculous. If they were going to do that, then why approach them in the first place? It's not many things that bother me or that I don't like that they did in the tournament or in wrestling in general. You really got to do something that I find just ridiculous for me to get offset like that. But that just came off as so absurd. Like, why go up to them in the first place if you weren't going to at least stand your ground or make some noise or talk trash to them or whatever the case may be? And, the 4 horsewomen of MMA essentially walked into their house, their wrestling house, the place that they made their name, the Full Sail Studios, where NXT is taped with all 3 of these women, 4 if you include Sasha Banks, who wasn't there. All 3 of these women made their name, and they stood them down. They're like, okay, yeah, you just say when and where, and we'll be ready. And not a word said. They just back off and leave, and that's that. It did not look good for the 4 horsewomen of wrestling. It did not look good for Charlotte and Becky Lynch and Bayley. It just didn't come off like they were strong in that particular instance. There's really nothing else that you can say about that. I know the WWE is just only trying to test this tease, but it'd have made more sense to me to have the Rousey group back away or, not have the wrestling group walk up there at all. Or the camera just cut before they leave. They stand there face to face and you cut the segment. Not have your hometown heroes back away like they were cowards. Well. Anyway, you'll have to go in there and look at it for yourself. That is episode 7. It is within the quarterfinals, and it is after the Toni Storm match, I believe. So now that I've gotten that out, we go to the main event as I started to do, which is Kairi Sane versus Dakota Kai, which, again, you have a pretty good match that's happening here. But I think the end was not in question, at least not in my estimation. I like Dakota Kai, but I had Sane picked to advance in this match as well. And what did she do? She did the same thing that she got with everybody else. She got Dakota Kai down and positioned her for that top rope elbow, which is, a thing of beauty. I don't know if it is a better looking elbow than Macho Man Randy Savage's elbow, like I've heard some people say. I like Kairi Sane's elbow from the top. She looks great when she's kind of gliding down, even though she kind of kicks her feet out and whatnot. But she hit it, got that win, and moves forward. The last episode released was episode 8, the semifinals, which is pushed into a 30-minute time limit. Now, you had a little bit more filler in this episode because, as stated before, you only got 2 episodes. I mean, not 2 episodes. You only had 2 matches left. When you're down to the semifinals, and there's only the Martinez Baszler match, and there's only the Sane Storm match. So you had to kind of fill out what was an hour of show that they filled between 4 matches. Now you got an hour show that you fill in between 2. The matches were a little bit longer, slightly, but you still had some intro and you had some pomp and circumstance at the end and stuff like that you had to kind of get through. So it opens up with the match that I was most interested in, and that was Shayna Baszler going against Mercedes Martinez. This is the one and only time that Shayna Baszler shook anyone's hand in the course of the 3 matches that she's been in. So, she didn't shake hands first round or second round or third, or I should say, or quarterfinals. But here at the semifinals, coming against who is listed as her wrestling mentor, she did shake Mercedes Martinez's hand. So that was the first time she showed any level of respect towards an opponent. This match was a good match, and it is probably the one time that you saw within this tournament that at any point in the game that Baszler was dominated. Mercedes took it to her at the beginning. She laid into base after they did their feeling out process. She and Mercedes basically showed the world that I don't sweat you. And once she kicked it into gear, she kicked it into gear hard, and she came down on Baszler. Now Baszler gave it back as good as she got at some point, and they had a hard hitting match. The story here is that Baszler was looking for a tap out with kind of a couple of different things. She got a leg grapevine on Mercedes and started working the knee. I think she got a heel hook at one point that was really stretching out the knee. So the story there became that she has damaged the leg of Mercedes Martinez. Mercedes got free of the submission, and a little bit later from that point, hits Baszler with the Fisherman Buster. But the problem there is that when she hit her with the Fisherman Buster, she was unable to roll over and get the pin because her leg was hurting. It was too bad. She couldn't make it in time. So she gave up maybe like 10, 15, 20 seconds worth of time, clutching at her knee and her ankle and on the opposite end of the ring after she, popped Baszler, and it looked like she was going to take it. You can see the 4 horsewomen out there on the, they got worry on their face because this is the first time that somebody put Shayna in jeopardy. Other than that, I mean, Mae Young came close, but really nobody put Baszler in jeopardy at all. Mercedes was the first one to do it. She crawls over, tries to get that cover, but Baszler had enough time to recover and got out. Then the tail of the tape was basically that Mercedes knows that she's got to get this Fisherman Buster hooked in again just to put her down. She tries a couple of other times, but ultimately another reversal and another rear naked choke puts Mercedes down. She tried to fight it for a little while. She hung in there probably a couple of seconds longer than any other opponent that she's been in. She being Baszler in the ring with up until this stage of the game. But ultimately, Mercedes did tap out, and I was so disappointed. It may have been the only match in the entirety of this tournament that I audibly gasped and I was disappointed in. I was really I wanted Mercedes to go into the finals. I thought that she really worked hard over her career and she deserved it. But she tapped out, and it would be Baszler to go forth. I said before the tournament began, when I was doing picks of who I thought was going to be in it, we were still kind of fishing around on the independents and saying who might be in this tournament, who might not. Baszler was one of my picks, and I picked her because I said the WWE loves their celebrities. They love somebody that they can hitch their wagon to, and they can kind of, hey, this person is a big star, and we can market that and kind of build around. Well, they got it. They got Shayna Baszler. That they look at her as a big star. She is a well-known MMA fighter, and I have no doubt that that's probably going to be one of the big selling points with her going forward, because Baszler has punched her ticket. She will be in the finals, and she will take on her opponent. And I think they're doing that in Vegas, which will be on the 10th, which is the upcoming Tuesday from me releasing this particular podcast. So the last match and the deciding match, and by the way, I did mark that as me being wrong. That was me having 3 wrong overall in the between episodes 5 to 8. Because in this match, Kairi Sane versus Toni Storm, I picked the winner. I picked Sane, and Sane was my pick to go all the way, and she absolutely, positively did not let me down. Toni Storm and Kairi Sane had what I would consider a pretty good match. It was nice and solid. And Toni Storm did show who she was. I mean, she is a rock star persona. But ultimately, it was Sane that came off, and she delivered the goods. She hit her with a top rope elbow, put her down for the 3 count, and she will advance to Las Vegas on the 10th of September to find out who will win the Mae Young Classic. Now, the one thing that I didn't go into at the end of these matches is that there was a little bit of a, ceremony, if you will. I mean, for lack of a better term, it wasn't really anything overblown. But following both wins, The win of Baszler over Martinez, the win of Sane over Storm, Triple H, Stephanie McMahon, and Sarah Amato, formerly Sarah Del Rey, came into the ring to congratulate the winners of the matches. To give them the handshake, give them the hug, kind of hold their arm up in victory and parade them around to the audience at large, and give them a really kind of beautiful bed of roses as the congratulatory thing. Probably most likely because that was the end of the run at Full Sail. So, this essentially was a big deal. And Baszler and Zayn won their individual heats. Baszler won the left, Zayn won the right. They didn't have a name for it, but I'm just saying it that because if you go on their site and you look at the page, that's how it's essentially broken down. So I thought that was a nice touch, and more importantly than that, they did not involve themselves in the storyline or the tournament or any of that stuff in any way, which I was so happy about. Because we all know that on Monday Night Raw, you can have a Stephanie McMahon who could be overbearing and we're the authority and this, that, and all that crap. I was just happy that Stephanie was just Stephanie McMahon, CEO or whatever, head creative writer or whatever her title happens to be. And she just shook their hand and she smiled and gave them a hug. And it, not for nothing, they didn't even, they didn't brush off the loser either, because Mercedes and Toni Storm both got, similar treatment, and they both of them deserved it. They got to the finals. They showed, they were the big names coming off of the independents walking into this thing, even, Storm being the younger and Martinez being the veteran. But they both were the big names coming off the independents, and they gave a really good showing right here at the semifinals. And, Triple H kind of gave them words on the side. And I thought that was really good, because never did I think I would see a Toni Storm, much less a Mercedes Martinez, in the same vicinity as a Triple H. To say nothing of the fact shaking his hand, giving him a hug, talking to him on the side, or Stephanie McMahon, and all that stuff. Mercedes and Sarah Amato, that's a different issue because they had a really good match in the past at Shimmer 1, which if you haven't seen it, you should go look it up. You should go find that match. It is the match that made me a fan of Mercedes to begin with. The huge, I think it was a 25-minute draw that they had at the time, which was a really, really, really good match. And which is another reason why I say that as good as the Mae Young Classic is, this stuff isn't anything new for people like me, or if you're listening to this, probably guys and girls like you who have watched independent wrestling, who followed independent wrestling, who've seen it, in various promotions from various women across the country and around the world. This stuff isn't anything new. Not at all. I mean, it's new for the WWE audience. Like, oh man, these girls coming up now, fantastic, and they wrestle like nobody else you've ever seen. Which is untrue because it happens every day. It happens, every time I look at the independents, there's always some girls out there that blow the match out of the water and rise above and beyond the Call of Duty to really take things to the next level. So I mean, and I'm not saying that to knock the Mae Young Classic. I'm just saying that it does exist outside of the Mae Young Classic. So if this did anything for you, and if you're not familiar with independent women's wrestling, and this is the only way that you've really become familiar with women's wrestling, do yourself a favor, go look at a Shine match, go look at a Shimmer match, which they use a lot of footage of anyway. Go look at a WSU match, go look at Big Time Wrestling, go find Girl Fight, go find any of these places that feature an abundance of the girls. Just an all-girl locker room, and I promise you'll find matches as good, if not better, than what you saw here in the Mae Young Classic. So to close this episode, after the roses have been given, after the commentators have kind of polished up the whole series and all that, they have come down to where the trophy is, or I should say come up because it's on the stage. And they've moved the trophy beginning in the I want to say the second round. It kind of got closer as they were wrestling because all of them kind of giving it a rub or acknowledging the trophy on the way out. So now we got the trophy front and center on the stage, like right in the middle of the ramp, but not on the ramp. But that's kind of the center point. And they have Kairi Sane come out and she, or go up to the ramp, and she's posing by the trophy and whatnot. Baszler comes and she comes up to Sane, and she goes right back into Shayna Baszler mode because Sane is extending the hand. She's extending the hand for a handshake, and you can see it's a huge size difference. You can see where this match is going already, that Baszler is probably going to toss around, but Kairi has been smaller than everybody else in this tournament, and she's done wonderful. But you have them on the stage together. She does not shake her hand, but what she does do, she being Shayna Baszler, she does take her fist and puts it in Kairi's face. And she's delivering a message, and it looks like she's going to fight so much that Triple H kind of reaches his arm towards Baszler. It's like, no, not now. Don't be starting this fighting stuff up right now. Just save it for the finals. He's trying to make sure nothing's happening here while the cameras are getting the pictures and they're getting that last image of the two ladies in front of the trophy. But as Shayna is putting her fist up towards Kairi's face, Kairi shows that she's not scared, and she takes her tiny fist and puts it right back up into Shayna's face. And her fist is so small, but she is showing so much guts. I loved it. I mean, it's really simple, but I love that visual that you're not going to bully me, and if you want to fight, we'll go. And while this thing is going off, she kind of shows the elbow. She shows her like, this is all it's going to take. If I get you with this elbow, you're done. And, of course, Shayna's not scared of it because we all know, and they've sold it throughout the entirety of this tournament, that as much as that elbow has been the finishing and the coup de grace for Kairi Sane, that rear naked choke has done the job for Shayna Baszler. And that is the story going forward, that these two women have not missed with their big holes or their big move. And it is down to, for lack of a better term, it's nut cutting time. It's down to the wire. And it is going to be Sane versus Baszler in the finals on the 10th of the Mae Young Classic. I can't wait. I'm really kind of, as I'm talking about it, getting excited for it. So, yeah, I'm really looking forward to seeing that match. So there it is. That is the full review of the Mae Young Classic, start to finish. Well, I should say we got the first round in the previous podcast, and now you got the rest of it, all 8 episodes in total, and this one is episode 5 through 8. I got my predictions in, and I would love to know if you actually had anything right. You can go back and you can check mine on Facebook and Instagram and Twitter, and you can look and see as I check over my list here of the last 4 episodes. I had 3 matches wrong. 2 matches wrong in the second round, 1 match wrong in the semifinals. Yeah, and that gave me a lot of oomph to kind of really watch this thing, and I was kind of on the edge of my seat with some of them, and I was really pissed that I got that first match wrong because I got 2 of them wrong back to back. I was like, oh man, I might be losing it here, but I picked up the pace and I got the rest of them right. So yeah, there we have it. I got 2 of them wrong in the second round, 1 wrong in the semifinals, 3 wrong overall. So there we go. I think I did pretty good in terms of my predictions from start to finish, and I went with the emotional pick for me. I went with Mercedes. I probably should have picked Baszler, but no, forget it. I'm going with who I like, and I like Mercedes, and I wanted her to take it. And she didn't go. It would have been nice to see her up in there against Zayn, but I am looking forward to seeing Baszler and Zayn hit it off and take that match in Vegas. So we will close this podcast. Thank you all for listening to this. I really appreciate it. Be sure to go on to our YouTube channel and check out some other stuff. We got some bonus round content coming up there, some games being played. I'm waiting on WWE 2K18 to release, so I can start up with that. I got a feeling there's going to be some fun coming up in that thing. I also got some new matches being released, several of which have just been unreleased on my hard drive. I don't know why I haven't put it up there, but I guess now is a good time as any. So we need to go ahead and put those things out for viewing consumption. So you have that. Also, if you are a podcast aficionado and you're like me and you like listening to these things while you drive, kind of pass the time, or you're on the bus or whatever the case happen to be, then what you want to do is you want to go over to one of our platforms where this is being provided, that being Podbean, iTunes, Google Play, TuneIn Radio, and you want to subscribe to the podcast. The subscription is free. It won't cost you anything, and it does show support for the show. If you are not going to go and donate monetarily, then subscriptions and followings are the next best thing. Liking and sharing is also good, because the more that it gets out, the better it is for our show. So there we have it, folks. Thanks again, everything, for listening in. And as I just was about to say, if you are so inclined to make a donation or a monetary donation to the show, you go to our YouTube channel. You can hit the donate link. Anything is good, and we're gonna have to start coming up with some acknowledgments of some sort for those of you that have done it, because we want to at least let people know that, hey, we appreciate you and your time, because you could be doing that, do anything with your cash, decide to back this show up, to keep the show alive, to keep the production rolling, and that is a big deal. Be sure to subscribe, Facebook.com, follow on Instagram and Twitter, and all other levels of social media. Go visit us on our website, WPNWrestling.com, and we will see you on the next podcast and the next show. And be sure to subscribe to that YouTube channel, because it keeps growing and it helps us out a lot. All right, folks, that's it. Thanks for tuning in, and we are out of here.
Thank you for listening to the WPN's Rights and Wrongs of Pro Wrestling. If you have questions or comments, please contact us via our Facebook or our YouTube channel at the Women's Pro Wrestling Network. If you're new to the WPN, feel free to subscribe to our channel and like our page. We appreciate your support. Thank you again for listening.